Okay, now this next one's going to be a little bit weird, okay? Just do the best you can with it. There's going to be a rule. There's no decimals are going to be allowed, okay? If you have a decimal, I want you to write it as a fraction. So it says find the slope and y-intercept of the following equations. Okay, you have a problem. You need to make a wall on this side of the equation, just like a wall like that. On the side where the y is at, make a wall on the side of the equals of y is at. In order for you to know what the slope and the y-intercept are, the m and the b, you have to rewrite this equation so that the y is all by itself. Okay? Here's what I would recommend. Box up the y term. Okay, just put a box around it. You need to get rid of this 4x by either adding or subtracting. If it does not have a sign in front of it, it's a plus. Okay, so the opposite of plus 4x is minus 4x. But here's a problem. On this other side of the wall, you need to put that wall. Okay. On the other side of the wall, we don't see x. Okay, that 10 doesn't have an x, so I make my own x. It is known as 0x. And then I minus 4x from there. Okay, so minus 4x minus 4x. That's 0. So I have negative 5y. Now you need to do your x's first. Okay, save that 10 for later. You take 0 minus 4, that would be negative 4x, and then I add my 10. Now, I have to deal with do the opposite of times negative 5, so I would then divide by negative 5, but I have to divide both of these separately by negative 5. Okay? So the y is by itself now. Now, remember what I told you about not writing down decimals? That's a decimal. What you need to do then is just leave it as a fraction. So negative 4 over negative 5x. Just leave it like that if it's a decimal. Then 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2, so I write minus 2. Now I have my m and my b, so now I know the slope and I know the y-intercept. So the slope is your m, okay, negative 4 over negative 5, but I want to talk about this. If you have a negative over a negative, you make them both positive. The negatives cancel. If it's a negative over a negative, okay? Mainly you don't want that bottom number ever to be negative. If it is, that's one way you can get rid of it. If the top's also negative, you can go plus, plus. And then minus 2 is a y-intercept. Those are your two answers. So on it, you'd write slope equals 4/5, y-intercept equals negative 2. Okay, and I'm going to go over 7 more, okay? So you get the repetition. Negative 3x plus 7y equals 14. So this is where the y, that's the side of the equals that the y is on. You need to first box up the y term along with the number that multiplies the y. Minus 3x, the opposite of minus 3x would be plus 3x, but we need to put our own x here in the form of 0x, and then I add 3x there. So I have 7y. Don't write 14 first, you need to do 0x plus 3x, that's 3x, write that, and then plus 14. Now, the opposite of times 7 is divide by 7, but you have to divide these both by 7 separately, because that has an x, that doesn't. You can't add 3 to 14, okay? You got to keep them separate. Okay, remember the rule about decimals. 3 divided by 7 is a decimal, so we leave it as 3x over 7. And then 14 divided by 7 is 2. So now I have my m and my b. Okay, so the slope is 3 over 7. The y-intercept is 2. You won't be able to figure those out until the equation's being rewritten and readjusted so the y is by itself. Okay, example 3. 1x minus 1y equals 6. Okay, so here's my y. Box up the y with its multiplier. This is a plus 1x, so you need to minus 1x. You actually need to put an x over here and then minus. That's where you can minus 1x. You can't do it from the 6. The 6 doesn't have x behind it. So we have negative 1y. Do this first. 0 minus 1 is negative 1x, and then we add the 6. Okay, now negative 1 is times by y. The opposite of times negative 1 is divide by negative 1. And then I divide these separately by negative 1. Okay, so negative 1 divided by negative 1 is not a decimal, so I write 1x. And then 6 divided by negative 1 is negative 6, so minus 6. Now we have our m and our b. So the slope is 1, the y-intercept is negative 6. Okay, example number 4. 2x minus 3y equals 6. So slope y-int. Okay, here's my y. We have to get the y by itself. So first thing I do is kind of box up the y and the number in front of it. This 2x has to be added or subtracted. If it doesn't have a sign in front of it, put a plus. So the opposite of plus 2x is minus 2x, and then we make a 0x and put minus 2x under there. So you have negative 3y, 0 minus 2 is negative 2x, and then plus 6. Now we divide everything by the negative 3. Now the y is by itself. Negative 2 divided by negative 3 is a decimal, so you keep it negative 2 over negative 3 and then put x. And then 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So now you know your m and b. You can't do y equals mx plus b. Okay, your slope's negative 2 over negative 3, but remember what I said about a negative over a negative. They cancel, and it's positive 2 over 3. And then b, y-intercept's minus 2. Okay. Example 5. 6x minus 5y equals 10. So again, you got to get this y by itself. You have to rewrite the equation. So the y, so plus 6x, so I'm minus 6x. I need an x over here, so I make my own x 0x. I'm allowed to do that. So I line up my equals. We have negative 5y. Remember, the minus in front of it means that's a negative 5. 0 minus 6 is negative 6x, and then plus 10. Then we divide everything by this negative 5. Divide everything separately. So now we have y all by itself. Negative 6 divided by negative 5. Don't write the decimal. Just keep it negative 6 over negative 5x. 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. So my slope is negative 6 over negative 5, but again, we get the plus because of that, 6/5. And then the slope is minus 2, or the y-intercept's minus 2. Okay. Okay, example 6. Negative 4x plus 3y equals 6. Okay, so here's my y. The opposite of minus 4x is plus 4x. Then I put a 0x and I add 4x to that. So I have 3y. 0 plus 4 is 4x plus 6. Now the opposite of times 3 is divide by 3, and then we got to divide these by 3 separately. Okay? Don't add the x to the non-x number. Okay, 4 divided by 3 is a decimal, so we will not be writing the decimal. We will just put 4x over 3, keep the fraction. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we have m and b. So the slope is 4 over 3. The y-intercept is 2. Okay, example 7. Negative 5x plus 2y equals 12. So the opposite of minus 5x is add 5x. And I put a 0x and I add 5x there. So I have 2 times y. Do your x first. That's 5x plus 12. Divide everything by that 2. So then the y is now by itself. Okay, 5 divided by 2 is a decimal, so I keep it as a fraction. 5 over 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So the slope is 5 over 2, and plus 6 is the y-intercept. Example 8. Negative 6x plus 2y equals negative 6. Okay. So minus 6x, we plus 6x. Put a 0x, and you plus 6x there. So we have 2y. 0x plus 6x is 6x, and then minus 6 because it's a negative 6. And I go ahead and the opposite of times 2 is divide by 2. I divide these by 2 separately. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, so we're going to have 3x minus 3. So the slope is 3. Y-intercept's negative 3.